In this lesson, we're going to put everything together to set up a successful photo shoot from start to finish. It's really exciting because it's going to bring together all of the different elements we've discussed, from telling a story, to styling your food, to getting your scene and your composition right, to using the camera. And we're going to go through a 5-step process that I use every time to do a successful photo shoot where I get every shot I need, don't have to do retakes, and they look really good. Because it can be a little daunting now that we've gone over all of these topics to bring them all together in a way that's cohesive and that allows you to take really, really good pictures, which is the whole point of this course. So we're going to go over my 5-step process for successful photo shoots. And here they are. The first one is to copy, and we'll talk about what that means in a second. Second, you have to set up your scene. Third, you want to compose your scene using stand-ins. Fourth, prepare great food, and finally, shoot over 50 pictures using the 5-10 rule, which we'll talk about soon. So let's look at each of these 5 steps in turn. Now, I believe that in order to be a good food photographer, you need to learn the art of copying. Now, here's what I mean by that. If you look over here in the corner of this picture, there's my computer, and on my computer is a picture of pancakes. It's a pancake on a white table lit similar to mine, but those aren't my pancakes. That's a picture I found on the internet. I found a number of pictures before I did this photo shoot, before I ever even set it up, to give me ideas. See, I wanted to find out what other people had done so I could build upon their successful pictures to create my own. And in my opinion, this is how great art is made. It's not about sitting by yourself until you get some perfect inspiration just through osmosis. It's about looking at what people have done, getting inspiration, and setting up something that can build upon what has been done before you. So especially at the beginning, I would recommend using Food Gawker, which we've talked about a number of times, or simply Google Images to search for other pictures of the item you plan on taking pictures of. Then find and save a few of them onto your computer that have a similar feel or similar composition or similar lighting to something you'd like to do. And then keep those pictures in mind as you set up your own scene and composition. Obviously, don't completely copy. When I say copy, I don't really mean to copy them, but I mean use them as a starting point to help you get to where you want to go. I do this almost every time, and I'm so thankful for the community of photographers who share their work online for everyone to see so that we can all learn from it. And I hope as you become a good food photographer, you'll share your photos online, on your blog, or on Flickr, or a social network, so that we can all share in learning from each other. Next, we need to set up our scene, and after going through a few sections of this course, it should be pretty clear what that means. First, you have to choose the right location. You need to make sure your lighting is set up correctly, and you should be mindful of the surface and the background on which you're shooting, making sure it's telling the right story and giving you the right setup. And finally, add the right props and accents into your scene that tell the right story and share the right information. Now, once I have my scene basically how I want it, and I'm looking at it and I think it looks good, what I'll do is I'll use a stand-in to help me set up my shots. You know, in the movies when the famous actors are off in their trailers, they'll have someone a similar size and build to the actor stand in for the shot so that the camera people and the lighting people and the sound people can set up the scene. They can get their lighting right, they can make sure it looks the way they want it to, so that when the famous actor is there, they can maximize their time. And in this case, this is very important because we've talked about before how food is very perishable. It has a short lifespan. So if you're taking pictures of ice cream and you set it onto a hot table, you only have a few seconds. If you have your lighting wrong and you have to stop and go fix your lighting and move your reflectors, then you're going to have your shot ruined before you ever get back. This is why I often use stand-ins. So I knew I was taking pictures of pancakes in this shot, and I used English muffins in their place so that I didn't have to deal with the pancakes, and this was all before I ever even started cooking. So then I knew kind of how I wanted to set up my shots, I knew which angles I wanted to get, I knew how to compose them, I made sure the lighting was right. That way, when I actually had the pancakes, or the star in this case, I was ready to go, put the pancakes on the plate, and the scene was set up perfectly in no time. Only after doing all of that do you want to actually start cooking. Because again, the food is very perishable, it has a short lifespan, so you don't want to cook until you're absolutely ready to take the pictures. Now, as you're cooking, remember, we had a whole section on styling that talked about how you can't take pretty pictures of ugly food. So take the time to make sure your food looks fantastic as you're preparing it. Keep in mind what you want the food to look like on the plate and in the final scene, and make sure you're cooking it in that way. If you want it to be a little extra charred, make sure you cook it that way. If you want it to be a certain color or a certain shape, make sure you're taking these things into account as you're preparing the food. And finally, be mindful of this issue of the freshness and the lifespan. If you're making cookies, you're going to have a lot of time and you probably don't even need to use stand-ins. But if you're making ice cream or rice or pasta, then you're going to have a limited time span to take great pictures, so be mindful of that as you're cooking. The final step is something I call the 5-10 rule. This is where we pick up the camera and start taking pictures. Now, the 5-10 rule says that you use 5 different setups and angles, and you take at least 10 pictures in each of those setups. This way, you're absolutely assured to get plenty of decent quality pictures and a few extraordinary ones in every photo shoot. So what you do is you'll set your food up in a certain way. Then you'll take about 10 pictures of a similar angle with that setup. Then you'll move the food, maybe you'll add a different element or take away an element, maybe put a fork onto the plate or add some blueberries, as we'll see in a minute, and you take 10 more pictures. Maybe you go to a different angle and you take 10 more pictures. And you do this 5 times where you either move to a different angle or you add something different to the plate. And that way you end up with 50 or 60 or 70 pictures, and a few of them are going to be really good. Even if you don't know what you're doing, they're going to accidentally be good. So that's a sure way to get everything you need in one photo shoot. And let me show you an example using these same pancakes we've been going over here in this lesson. In this first angle, I just put the pancakes on the plate. Now it looks just like my English muffin picture because I already had the scene set up from steps 2 and 3 where I used the stand-in. So I put the pancakes on the plate and I was ready to go. I took about 10 pictures, then I decided to add some blueberries for some depth. And we got these pictures. I took about 10 of these, similar angles, left and right, up and down a little bit, and we took some of those. Then I added syrup. So now we're starting to get somewhere. I like these a little better. I like them, and I took more pictures. I took about 10 more pictures here. Then I cut out a section of the pancakes to give the picture a new dimension. And finally, I took about 10 more pictures with the pancakes on the fork, trying to get it focused on the fork and get the pancakes in the background. So notice how each of these 5 setups built upon the last. Once I started pouring the syrup, I knew I couldn't go back. And once I cut out the pancakes, I certainly couldn't go back. So I started out simple, then I added new elements 4 more times. I took probably 60 pictures in this photo set. And hey, film is free these days, so you might as well take more pictures than you need to make sure you get everything. So that's how you can use the 5-10 rule to make sure you get the perfect shots every time. Now, what about shots during the process? A lot of times on food blogs and other places, you'll see people taking pictures during the process. Maybe the food will be in the pan, or it'll be in the oven cooking, or they'll be cutting up the ingredients. And if you enjoy that, go right ahead and take those pictures. I don't do it a lot because if you're doing this by yourself, you have to set up all of those scenes. You have to take all those pictures and make sure the lighting's right. And that really distracts from cooking and it breaks my flow. So I personally just don't enjoy taking pictures as I'm cooking. I prefer to cook and really focus on getting the food right and then taking pictures. But if you enjoy picking up the camera and taking a few shots as you're cooking your food, by all means go ahead and do that. It can look really great. The last thing I want to mention is that this process is all about flow. When you're doing a photo shoot, make it fun. Don't get bogged down in the details and say, okay, I'm on step 1 and how do I style my food again and all of that. Just give yourself enough time, at least an hour maybe if you're doing a real photo shoot, so you're not rushed and you can flow through the steps and have fun with it. Because at the end of the day, if you aren't enjoying yourself, you might as well be doing something else. This is supposed to be fun, it's creative. So as you're setting up your photo shoots, make sure you're having a blast above all else. Now that you're armed with this new information of the 5-step process to set up a photo shoot, the only way it's going to stick and the only way you're going to get value out of it is to practice. So again, use that cheat sheet at the end of the lesson and go through the 5-step process to do a fantastic photo shoot from start to finish and see just how much you've learned throughout this course. And now that you've taken all these fantastic photos, in the next section we'll learn how to process them so that they look even better.